Howdy ho H2Os, roller bros, and Fords alike. I'm your guide Q, and welcome to r/Tales from Your Server. These are going to be all stories from like waiters and waitresses about all kinds of stuff. It's not necessarily exclusively bad customers, although there is some of that and it's fantastic, but it's just general interesting stories from restaurants. So let's get right into the stories. Uber Eats guy freaked out when I asked him to verify an order. I bartend, worked a day shift. We aren't a restaurant known for takeout, but we allow it and are set up through various service apps. Had an Uber Eats order in the middle of lunch hour and eventually had a driver briskly walk in and act a little aggressive when announcing himself. I had the order ready, so I asked him to verify what he was picking up. He raised his voice. "It's for Jeff! What's the name say?" We don't get a name. I told him that I didn't have one, so I just needed him to tell me what was on the order. I've seen them check this dozens of times. It's usually not inconvenient. Again, louder. "What's the name say? Are those the wings?" It was 3 items together. None of them were wings. I repeated that I didn't have a name and told him that we didn't have an order for wings. He got angry. "Are those the wings?" I explained again that they weren't wings, showed him that I had 3 items together, and asked him to clarify what order he was looking for. At this point, he snapped and started screaming at the top of his lungs, "Can I get any service?" The bar fell silent. I put the food down and told him to leave. He continued shouting, "Fine, well, I'll leave then." He continued causing a scene as he made for the door. I told him he needed to get out immediately or I'd call the police. "What's it look like I'm doing? Call the police then!" Then he spit on the floor, slammed the door open, and stormed off. Bar stayed silent for a few more seconds before people returned to their meals. Not 2 minutes later, another driver showed up, verified the order, and left without issue in under a minute. I mean, my best guess is that this person did not work for Uber Eats, and they were just hoping that if they were as indignant as possible, they could intimidate someone into giving them free food. Alright, we've got 2 stories in a row of cops being called for very different reasons. The cops came. Had an absolutely phenomenal Saturday, big parties, high checks, happy guests. Except for this Trish. I'm gonna call her Trish instead of what it says, because I feel like if I say this over and over again, it might get the video demonetized. A party of 4 comes in. As I greet and get drink orders, I realized that I waited on this woman last week, and she was absolutely horrendous. Whatever, maybe she had a bad day. First thing was they all started barking drink orders at me, like out of order. I had to stop them and I'll be like, "I'll start with the lady here." Then I drop their drinks, and as I'm putting their drinks on the table, this one woman, I'll call her Trish, starts barking a food order at me. I completely ignore her. After I finish dropping drinks, I politely say, "Sorry, you'll have to repeat all of that. My hands were full." They all order absurd amounts of food. Each got 2 apps, an entree, and had 2 desserts. They wanted desserts brought out with the entrees, which of course, while it's weird, is a strange request I've fulfilled before, so I'm like, whatever. When the app order comes out, I see our food runners standing at the table while this lady is saying something to them. Oh god, my poor runner. I hustle over. I lean into Trish at the table. "Is everything okay?" "Well, first of all, I ordered buffalo wings and not chicken tenders, but it's fine, I'm gonna eat them anyway." Me furiously pulling out my notebook because I very vividly remember the convo I had with this woman where she ordered chicken tenders and I asked her if honey mustard and barbecue were okay. These come as the default 2-ounce dips, and she asked for extra sauce, and I made a note that she asked for extra sauce. So of course I slap on the smile. "My apologies. While I'm here, can I confirm that I have the entrees right? Trish isn't gonna pull one over on me. You ordered the food you're getting." They eat all their apps, entrees and desserts come out. I go to check on them, they say everything's fine, then 5 or 10 minutes later, Trish waves me down. I walk over, half of their plates are eaten. "First of all," she starts, actually second of all at this point, I mumble, "this is dry, this is burnt, this has too much sauce, blah blah blah," spewing all this BS to my face. I already see where this is going. Let me get my manager. I explain the situation to my manager and he comes over. Their bill is like $200 and they're trying to refuse to pay any of it, after they just sat here getting 2 rounds of drinks, apps, and ate half their entrees. My manager offers to comp a few of the entrees, more than fair, but that's not enough. I'm busy taking care of 2 8-tops, so when my GM leaves to go deal with the check in the server station, I don't see these people get up and try to leave. The bouncers stop them at the door. The woman, Trish, decides to call the police on the restaurant for refusing to let her leave. You read that right. The cops show up and hear everyone's side of the story. In the ensuing scuffle, Trish spits on one of the bouncers, so my manager has her charged with assault and immediately arrested. Probably the trashiest, most garbage table I've ever had the displeasure of serving. Update, my boss informed me last night before they left they did indeed pay. Okay, so I have experienced this sort of thing before, maybe not to this extent as a server, but I have had people come in, ball out super hard, and then their goal is to complain about everything to the point where they have to pay very little or nothing at all for their meal, and it's just disgusting to see this sort of thing. It's super manipulative, and I'm glad that they had to end up paying for everything and that Trish got arrested. I called in an officer to do a welfare check. It turned into 4 squad cars and 2 ambulances. Normal day at Sonic. I walk in from my car, and a man asks if I've seen his wife. Confused, I say no and started to ask a couple questions about her. He stated that she was going next door. Next to us is just a Walgreens and a nail salon. He leaves the building for about 10 minutes. Coming back in, he asked if I was sure that I hadn't seen his wife. I stated that I had still not seen his wife. He was wondering when his wife's order would be brought out. Our screens were completely empty, which means there were no orders coming into the restaurant. This is when I realized that something was wrong. My first thought was some sort of mental instability. I felt sad. I asked him how long his wife was gone, and he stated 3 hours. Crap. I asked him if he could call her. No, they both do not have phones. I left for a few minutes to run checks in the back because the cooks like to do nothing half the time. I come back 5 minutes after and notice he's not sitting in a booth. I noticed he was standing outside. I walked towards him and attempted to have a conversation with him, but a 17-year-old and an 80-plus-year-old getting along wasn't the easiest type of talking. He said AAA was coming to fix his car. I asked him to point out his car for me and he couldn't figure it out. I got him to come sit down inside. Next up, phone call to our non-emergency line. After about 8 minutes of back and forth talking with the operator, she states that she'll send a squad car to do a checkup on him. About 20 minutes passed and an officer walked in as I pointed towards the man. For the next 15-ish minutes they talked and then walked out to a blue Mazda CX-5 parked horribly at the Walgreens. About 20 minutes followed that and it seemed as if they were chatting. It was his wife in the car. According to the officer, she was slow to speak. Next moment, 3 more squad cars come up and 2 ambulances came from across the street along with a fire truck. I noticed they were putting her on a stretcher and he walked with the officer into the car and you could see flashing lights. That was all I knew until an officer came in to purchase a drink himself once everyone left and he was filing the report in his car. Of course, I didn't charge him because it's a soda and that's dumb. We talked for a bit and the old man was suffering from dementia while the wife was going through a diabetic episode. The man was also going through one, except he had 3 of our Oreo waffle cones because nobody knew about the situation and kept serving him. In the end, I talked to an officer this morning again and both of them are doing fine but are still in the hospital under close watch. I'm just glad no one died. Dude, this is just like incredibly scary. I can't imagine being either of the older people in this situation. One, the husband experiencing dementia and not knowing how to find or help his wife, and the wife being in the car and being like, okay, my husband's getting help, but maybe just like losing track of time. I guess neither of them had cell phones, so there was nothing she could really do about it, and God, that just scares me. Or being the employee that's trying to like decipher what this old man's going through. Thank God you called the non-emergency line because you definitely could have saved a life that day. You know how it is, girl. I'm black, and I've worked in several different restaurants over the years. The one crappy tip story that sticks out is pretty short. I had a table of a few 30 or 40-something women and men, all black. Everything went well, we laughed and joked. They appeared more blue-collar types, but this was Red Lobster. They were drinking lobsteritas. Okay, lobsterita sounds like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard of. I've never personally been to a Red Lobster. I'm assuming there's not actually lobster in the margarita, but I guess I can't be sure of that. But either way, even if there's not lobster in it, I'm not ordering a drink called a lobsterita. Ordering premium sides, lots of apps, generally going in. Blue-collar workers tend to be great tippers from my experience. Last night, for example, 2 guys in blue coveralls and work boots left me $30 on a $70 bill. At the end of the meal in question, one of the women, the one who'd been most loud and playful of the bunch, covers the whole check. I'm happy, thinking her friends would be leaving me tips too since they got a free meal, though that doesn't always happen. When I hand her the book back, she crosses through the tip line while I'm still standing there, laughs and says to me, "You know how it is, girl. Money's tight. Gotta save where you can." I still can't believe she said that to me. Just the way she said it too. Like black woman to black woman, you know how it is. No bitch, I don't. So I've seen this happen time and time again. I was a server for 6 years, so I saw so many people come in, ball out, like insist on paying the bill. It always seemed like the people that insisted on paying the bill the most were the people that ended up like not tipping very well or tipping nothing at all. And it's just, I know that tips are complicated for some people to understand, especially if you don't live in the States, but in the States, waitresses and waiters are usually not even paid minimum wage. When I was working as a waitress, when I was working as a waiter or a server, I was making $2.35 an hour for the first 3 years of my career. Then I was making $3.35 an hour for the last 3 years. And so it's a broken system, like it shouldn't work that way. But waiters and waitresses should just get paid a good hourly, and the items on the menu should be more expensive. But since it doesn't work that way, it is good to tip people, and you're basically like, money's tight for me, so money's gonna be tight for you, even though I offered to cover this entire bill. It's just absolutely ridiculous. The thing I'm honestly most surprised about is that none of her friends, like, called her out. I don't know, maybe they did, but it doesn't say anything about it in this story. If one of my friends was like, money's tight, I can't give you a tip, I'd be like, okay, then I guess everybody else at the table, we should get our money together and get this woman a tip. So be sure to let me know what you thought about all these stories, especially if you work in the restaurant industry or the service industry. Also, feel free to send in your own horror stories or just interesting stories of being a server or a retail employee. File it under Tales from Retail or Tales from Your Server at qsubs@gmail.com. That's CUESUBS@gmail.com, and we'll look through it and possibly put it in a future video. So I will see you guys very soon. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. Skate on to the best of your abilities. Make sure you're drinking more water, and peace.